Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call. Today is May 3rd. We're in the month of May, and this should be a very good month for us. This is going to be a standard call today, so I'm going to get into a lot of information, and we will have a Q&A. For those of you calling in for the first time, we welcome you to the call. I would suggest that you, if you like the things we're discussing, that you go ahead and click the subscribe button so that you can get the calls on a regular basis. And if you'd be kind enough to share them with other individuals, like-minded individuals that you think might be interested in what we have to say as well. Before we get started, I wanted to mention that we've been absolutely swamped the last week with calls, emails, texts, everything. So there are a number of individuals that I need to get back in contact with. You will be contacted this week. So after this call and all day tomorrow, and if it goes into Friday, so be it. But you will be contacted this week if you contacted us either to get our initial no obligation package, or if you're an existing client that has some sort of a question or service request, we'll be happy to assist you. I just wanted to briefly mention the fact that I had to hurriedly get through last week's call because I had an opportunity to get into a call in Iraq. I don't want to go into a lot of detail, but I have actually a relative that did 2 tours in Iraq. Now, it works for the security company that actually in the green zone that transports VIPs around. So I find out about these calls, and he's been sort of a liaison and got me into these calls. Very briefly, the call that I got into last week had to do with the inclusion process, which is the creation of basically expansion, rather, not creation, but the expansion of the citizen banking, all of the benefits that are going to be made available, how they're going to make it much easier for these individuals to exchange their provisional 3-0 currencies for the new national currency. The mere fact that this meeting existed tells me that they're moving quickly into that window for the reinstitution of their currency. First, by way of disclaimer, again, before we get into the call, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of the dinar and these other currencies. We're not advocating either the sale or purchase of these currencies, but we are, as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, sharing with you the information we believe to be most relevant. Last week, I was looking, based on the information I had, at a window for the possible reinstitution of the dinar between April 21st, which was the end of Ramadan, and the beginning of Eid al-Fitr, to May 15th, which is, of course, mid-May. We've got almost 2 weeks before we reach that threshold. A couple of things have happened since then. There has been a delay with the budget, although, and I'll get into this, there is going to be a third reading, my understanding, this week. But the delay doesn't have to do with any disagreement about the budget. The delay has to do with when they're going to change the exchange rate. Are they going to do it prior to the passage of the budget or not? Now, in my opinion, I've stated this before, the two are not directly linked. In a perfect world, it would be nice to see the reinstitution of the currency and then the passage of the budget with that new rate in the line item. However, the 3-year budget is written in a way where the rate can be amended. So they could just go ahead, have the third reading, pass the budget, and then after the fact adjust the rate. But one thing we do know is that they have extended this parliamentary session until the budget is finalized and ready to go into the Gazette. So we're in good shape where that's concerned. Now I want to touch a little bit on both the fiscal and monetary reforms that are going on in Iraq, because things are moving pretty quickly. As I mentioned with regard to the parliament, they're involved in the third reading, and in my opinion, this is a formality. Even the more radical faction within the coalition framework that's doing whatever they can at this point to forestall all of this, it's falling on deaf ears. So I'm not saying that the third reading is perfunctory, but I am saying I know of nothing that's going to stop the passage of this budget. The CBI, in the meantime, has had meetings with the IMF, United States Treasury, and the World Bank. And, of course, there's absolutely no reason for those individuals to be meeting unless something is happening vis-a-vis the budget, vis-a-vis the currency in Iraq. So that's good news, too. The CBI also issued a tender offer, which is basically a proposal for the new national currency, which will be a gold-backed Basel IV compliant currency. And that basically tells us that when we go to the bank to do our exchange, we're going to get some serious dollars back in exchange for those dinar. Now I want to touch a little bit on what the call last week had to do with the inclusion in the banking system. Citizens now are being basically funneled into the establishment of bank accounts, and the impetus for this is that in order for the citizen in Iraq to exchange their provisional 3-0 currencies for the new national currency, they're going to have a bank account. Now, because they're moving to electronic platforms, they're going to need bank accounts anyway. But this is a way for the government of Iraq to ferret out all of the 3-0 provisional currency that's under mattresses, under carpets, wherever they've been holding it, afraid to take it to a bank, afraid to utilize it. Now they have a good reason to do so. They can go to the bank, exchange it for the new national currency. And again, it's now an electronic platform. They're going to be issued ATM cards, and they'll be able to utilize the ATM machine. So this is all moving forward. Iraq has also been offered membership in the IBBC, which is the International Banking, Business and Credit NGO, along with the Arab Monetary Fund. And interestingly enough, the Arab Accounting Dinar Exchange System, which handles the balance of payments between the members of the Arab Monetary Fund, establishes a rate for the currencies in the various countries. And the extrapolated rate right now for the Iraqi dinar in the Arab accounting system within the Arab Monetary Fund is approximately $4 US. So that tells us that the dinar is going to be a strong currency. And, we've discussed in the past, in my opinion, I was thinking the dinar could be closer to $5. And I use, as a matter of fact, $5 in some hypothetical examples. I always have. But even the conservative estimates have the dinar at $4, so that's very good news. Now I want to talk a little bit about the budget and the IQD rate, which, again, I don't think are directly linked. I need to go back a little bit and see where we were with the dinar. A few years ago, I guess it's been that long, maybe it was 18 months ago, the dinar really devalued. And a lot of people got very disheartened. Some people said, I'm just going to sell my dinar. This is never going to happen. The dinar is going in the wrong direction. And I said at that time that that's not what's happening. This is the precursor for the de-pegging from the U.S. dollar. They devalued the dinar in order to collect the provisional 3-0 notes. And so we went from 1,700 down to 1,460. We're currently at 1,310. I'm thinking in order to get to 1-to-1 with the USD, we're going to probably have another move to 1,100 or 1,000. And at that point, the deletion of the zeros puts us at pretty much 1-to-1, the IQD with the USD. And in order to reinstitute, they need that parity. They need to eliminate the multi-currency currency system they're operating under. And what I mean by that is while the official rate today of the dinar is 13.10, the market rate's around 13.90. Now they're a lot closer than they were, and they're moving in the right direction. But they need to get to within a 2% difference. So if the dinar's at 13.10, that means that the market rate would need to drop to about 13.35 or less in order to get within that 2% window. I think they're moving in that direction. But even at 13.90, I don't know that would forestall the drop to 1,100 or 1,000 for the dinar. But they are narrowing the difference, and that's very important. The CBI process of depegging the dollar was done not only for the reinstitution of the dinar, but all of the things that needed to be done in order to transition to a nation operating with its own national currency. And so they have implemented progressively these things. For example, only use of the IQD in the ATMs. IQD being used to pay salaries. And remember, most Iraqi citizens work for the government, so that's huge. Then, of course, travel, the purchase of goods and services is being done in the IQD. And now, if you want to purchase national bonds for the government of Iraq, it's done using the IQD. So even though they're still operating technically with the 3-0 provisional currency, they're operating with the IQD wherever possible. None of what's going on, nothing that I've discussed today makes any sense unless their intention is to reinstitute their currency. In addition, Prime Minister Soudani, the governor of the CBI al-Alaq, and even Sadr have gone out and publicly stated that they anticipate the release of the new national currency at any time. Sadr, who has been quiet as of late, has referred to it publicly as the new holy currency. So everyone's on the same page. Everyone is in agreement. At least most people are. Now, there are some headwinds. I just want to touch on them. In Iraq, again, we still have the radical pro-Iranian faction of the coalition framework that doesn't want to see any of this happen because they want Iraq to remain the piggy bank for Iran. And they're getting so desperate, this little group is now going after Kazemi, saying that he allowed the United States entry into the country, which precipitated the death of Soleimani and al-Humandes. Now, these people are irrelevant. They're stupid because these two individuals that were assassinated, Soleimani and al-Muhandis, were killing Iraqi citizens. So if you want to publicly be on the side of the people that supported Soleimani and al-Muhandis, be my guest, but they're not doing themselves any favors. And again, they've made themselves, in my view, irrelevant. Then there's the United States. Now, the problem with the United States, and specifically the United States Treasury, is not that they're trying to stop what's happening in Iraq. They pretty much see the writing on the wall. The problem is they are in the process, through a number of policies, of subverting and, in my opinion, really going after the middle class. And let's face it, most individuals that possess dinar are middle class, upper middle class, hardworking people. They've created inflation, higher taxes, problems with the supply line. So they hired 87,000 additional agents. Well, and I've said this before, I really do think part of the calculus for those 87,000 new agents is the understanding that as many as 10 million Americans have some of these pre-valued currencies, dinar, dong, rupiah, zim, and with the knowledge that at some point these currencies are going to reinstitute and reevaluate globally, these individuals are going to receive literally an overnight windfall. We call it overnight. It might happen overnight, but you may have been sitting on your currencies going on 20 years. But from the perspective of a high surveillance, high tax state, from their perspective, that's not a good thing. So there are things we can do to circumvent what they're attempting, and I'm going to get into those. Exhibit number one for what's going on in this country was the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act. And I got to be straight with you. The federal government, at least with this bunch, they're really giving us the middle finger salute on this one. They did it in the past. If you'll remember, the Affordable Care Act should have been called the Unaffordable Care Act. Well, the Inflation Reduction Act should be called the Inflation Production Act, because everything within the bill does nothing but create more inflation. For example, new minimum corporate tax. Well, there's no such thing as a corporate tax. It's a pass-through to the consumer. That's inflationary. They also included a stock repurchase excise tax. Now, what's that? Well, when the economy takes a downturn or when a company's not doing well, a lot of times the companies buy back their own stock in order to stabilize the price and stop the fall in its value. So what does the government do? It puts a punitive tax on corporations that do that so that the market continues to drop, once again hurting the middle class. And then the last thing it does is there are all kinds of tax benefits for green energy, tax credits, and things of that nature. So they're picking winners and losers. And again, they're building the green end, and they're destroying the fossil fuel side. At this point, let's talk a little bit more about the economy and why I think what they're doing is very harmful to those of us that are in the middle class and those of us that are trying to move up with the purchase and possession of these currencies. Very simply put, the study of economics is the study of the production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services. It's a three-legged stool. If any of those three legs is loose or broken, the stool doesn't work. The economy doesn't work. So what's happening is it's almost as though this is a programmed demolition in order to move us into the direction they want to move us into. The creation of the central bank digital currency, if nothing else, should tell you that this is about centralized control. Let's talk about the post-constitutional age that we're living in now, pursuant to the people that are running the country right now. Defund the police really means federalized police force. Okay? All of the reduction in the production of fossil fuels really means federalizing the energy sector by creating an electric grid, forcing us into electric. And of course, the funny thing about that is electric, batteries, all of those things, they don't create energy, they merely store energy. The energy still comes from all of these fossil fuels. It's just that they're taking them away from us, utilizing them as a conduit to force us into an electric grid. They're federalizing it. They're also federalizing the banking system, and that's important after this revaluation because you got money in the bank, and you got to get it out of the bank, or you got to find a way to control it to the extent that the money does remain in the bank. So how are they federalizing the banking system? By destroying the regional banks and the credit unions. They're propping up the federal banks. So as these banks falter, and now we're on our third bank, Biden trots out there and says all of the policy holders will be made whole. Well, the policy holders at these large federal banks, the average account is larger than the 250 covered under FDIC. So what the federal government's doing is it's creating policies which create default for the banks. The banks were able to get money from the Federal Reserve at zero interest rates for 12, 15 years. Now they're paying substantially higher interest rates. They get squeezed. They have runs on the bank. They can't function. They go under. The federal government then bails out the account holders over and above the $250 million, but not the regional banks or the credit unions. So what happens? People take flight to the federal bank because they know that it's backed up. That's how they're going to federalize it. And this is what's going on. So when we get into the discussion of our trust, I will touch on how we circumvent all of this, and most importantly, the central bank digital currency. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the program that Trusts Unlimited has put in place to assist those of you that are currency holders, because as I said, most individuals that are holders of the dinar and these other currencies are hardworking middle-class Americans. But given the high-tax, high-surveillance state that's being created, and anyone that's been awake for the last 18, 24 months doesn't even recognize the country and what's going on. I don't want to go into a litany about what's going on, but you know in your head and your heart that things aren't right. It's uneasy. You think about it. You wonder, is it going to get worse? You wonder, is there anything you can do to circumvent what they're trying to do to us? And the answer is yes, there is. So I want to talk about the trust, the Family Asset Protection Trust package that we established. Now, we've been marketing this for over a decade, and we did so specifically with Dinarians in mind. But a lot has changed in the last 10 years. So I'm going to discuss this trust package not only from the perspective of those of you that have currencies, but the perspective of any American citizen that simply wants to be left alone, that wants to live his life without having it exposed and having the intrusion of the federal government, without risking civil suits and all of and IRS audits and all of the things that are coming down the street because they don't like us, because they don't want us to have this wealth, and they don't want us to live outside of their little control. So first, by establishing this trust package, you're going to preserve your privacy and your anonymity. That means that the assets within this trust package are sealed, and the general public will have no knowledge of your net worth or your actual holdings. Now, if you are a Dinarian or a person with these pre-valued currencies and you receive this wealth, for a great many reasons, you don't think it's anyone else's business that what you possess. But that's also true whether you're a Dinarian or not if you are a person of means and you want to preserve your privacy and your anonymity. I'll give you one little statistic. 1 out of 4 individuals will be sued during their lifetime. And 40 to 50% of those lawsuits will be frivolous lawsuits. In other words, someone just wants a little money and they'll go away. They know you don't want to go to all the cost of litigation. However, all of the nuisance lawsuits and probably most of the lawsuits, if not all of them, will go away because if your assets are in this trust, these individuals will have to pay a substantial upfront retainer to any lawyer if he's going to go to court and try to pry from us what's exactly in your trust. Absent absolute cause, in other words, showing that an individual's been defrauded, they're not going to be successful. So no lawyer's going to take the case unless he's paid up front. And frivolous lawsuits aren't about paying money, they're about getting money. So that's all done. The second thing that this trust does, it allows you to avoid IRS scrutiny. All of the transactions are going to occur within the trust. The only thing you're going to receive is the dividends and interest from the trust, which is easily explained to the IRS. But, as an example, when these currencies revalue, a substantial amount of wealth is going to be within your trust. Now, if you had taken that as an individual in direct title, you're probably going to be audited. But if it happens within a trust, it's much less likely that there's going to be an audit because the IRS goes for the low-hanging fruit. They're not going to go after a rather sophisticated trust. They know that that's going to take a lot of time, and they'd rather deal with a slam dunk. But let's assume the IRS determines that they're going to audit your trust. And because the disparity between the income and the trust and your prior year's earnings is so great, they want to do a 6-year audit. Well, as an individual, they can do a 6-year audit, but they can't do a 6-year audit with the trust because the only taxable event within the trust will be the revaluation, and that'll be easily explained. Third benefit of the trust is gifting. Many individuals want to gift currencies to family and friends. In order to avoid a substantial federal gift tax, they're going to need to gift the currencies prior to their revaluation. A philanthropic gifting can always be done on a tax-preferred basis, either pre or post-RV, and it's much more advantageous to do philanthropic gifting after the revaluation in order to avoid your tax exposure. But again, in order to avoid a federal gift tax, you're going to need to give to friends and family prior to the revaluation. Now, if you have no problem giving them the currency, then you can either do it by giving them the currency outright to exchange for themselves, or giving them the USD lump sum after you've negotiated the exchange. But if you're in a situation where you're hesitant for any reason to give these individuals the currency, they could be children, they could be irresponsible, they could have disability issues, or you simply would prefer to manage the money yourself, you can gift the money to them through the special gift subtrust that Trusts Unlimited has created. It's an exclusive subtrust where you will avoid the federal gift tax because you're gifting the currency pre-RV, but you will have absolute control of the post-RV proceeds, meaning you can manage, invest, and distribute the money to these individuals as you wish. But if you are not a dinarian, what this trust package will do is allow you to create life estates for individuals. For example, you can give individuals cars for their usage or homes to live in, but the homes are within the trust package. They are under your control, so that any time you wish, you can rescind the gift, or if the individual themselves wants to move on and doesn't want to utilize it anymore, it remains in trust that you can do whatever you want with it. The fourth reason you'd want to establish this trust is to avoid the cost of delay in probate and the federal estate tax. I'll give you two scenarios. Scenario number one, and this is more or less for everybody, but I'm specifically talking about dinarians here. Scenario number one, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs an estate of $25 million. Now, that estate must go through a probate process that ordinarily can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months. But probate is a public disclosure process, meaning that the general public will be aware of the size of your estate, who your heirs are, and how much they each stand to inherit. So if anyone feels they have a legitimate claim against you, your estate, or your heirs, they can simply file that claim with the probate court. And that could tie the estate up for years, and in some cases even decades. And your heirs will have either limited access or no access at all to their respective inheritance until the probate process is resolved. Then there's something called the federal estate tax. This is the tax that the federal government would assess in order for that estate to be transferred to heirs. Under current law, approximately $10 million of that $25 million estate would bypass any federal estate tax, but the balance could be taxed as much as 65%. Now, this scenario is not only unacceptable, it's completely and totally avoidable. How? Scenario number two. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The next day, you assign those currencies on paper to our Family Asset Protection Trust package. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. And the day after that, you pass away, leaving that very same estate of $25 million to your heirs, but with one difference. The assets are in your Family Asset Protection Trust package. As a result, there will be no probate. There will be no public disclosure of your estate. Your heirs will have immediate access to their respective inheritance, and the federal estate tax will be zero, saving your heirs as much as 55% of their estate. The fifth reason you'd want, and by the way, this would apply to anyone with any estate, whether they have currencies or not. Now, the fifth reason you'd want to establish this trust package is for some very specific asset protection benefits. One pre-RV, one post-RV. Pre-RV, this trust package will allow you to circumvent the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. Now, what does that mean? Under our system of civil procedure, you can only be sued for what you actually own in title or the value of property at the time you transfer it out of title to an entity like our Family Asset Protection Trust package. Now, what does that mean? Let's take the previous example from before. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. Assign the currencies to the trust. They subsequently revalue to $25 million. As a result, you begin to live a life more reflective of your newfound wealth. Well, a couple of years down the road, someone sees that you're living rather comfortably and decides for whatever reason they're going to sue you. Well, this prospective plaintiff has a couple of problems. First, he or she better have a very strong case and very deep pockets, because this trust package is structured in such a way as to make it extremely expensive and extremely time-consuming to pursue civil litigation. But second, and most importantly, once any prospective plaintiff learns that pursuant to the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act, the only thing they can sue you for is the value of the property at the time of the exchange, $5,000, and none of the post-RV value of $25 million, there will be no lawsuit. Now, post-RV, and of course this would apply to anyone of wealth, but post-RV, this Family Asset Protection Trust package provides something I call limited liability stop loss. This protects you from future bad acts after you have acquired this wealth, and for the rest of your life, in essence. This protection is accomplished through a legal strategy called segregation of assets. This is why we've established a package of trusts, and this is how it would work. Once again, we'll use the same example. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000, transfer the currencies to the trust. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. And now that you have $25 million in trust, you decide to make some purchases. So you purchase a larger primary residence, a vacation home, perhaps a half a dozen rental properties for tax write-off and additional cash flow, a couple of cars, a boat, and let's say an RV. But as you purchase these items, you place each of them in their own separate subtrust to be managed by your master trust. Now, how does this protect you from future bad acts? Well, I'll give you an example. Let's say one day you're driving one of your new cars. You have an accident. The accident is clearly your fault, and tragically someone is seriously injured or even killed. Well, understandably, the family of the victim is going to want to sue you. But remember, civil suits are about monetary awards, and you don't legally own anything. So the plaintiffs would be left to sue the owner of the car that you were driving. Well, who owns that car? One of your subtrusts, of which you are merely the beneficiary. And what's in that subtrust? Merely that one car and the car insurance policy. In that scenario, the car insurance carrier will negotiate an out-of-court settlement with a victim's family. You will not be involved in those rather unpleasant negotiations. The car insurance carrier will repair or replace your car, making you whole. And this is the important fact from an asset protection standpoint. All of your other assets and net worth are protected in the other subtrusts. Why? Because under the law, those separate subtrusts are separate legal entities or persons having nothing whatsoever to do with the accident involved in the litigation. Therefore, the plaintiff has no standing to pursue those separate legal entities. So your Family Asset Protection Trust package works very much the way a commercial barge would work, where all of the valuable cargo is stored in a series of small compartments. Why? In the event that any compartment is ever breached, the only potential loss would be the cargo in that one compartment. The cargo in the other compartments is safe and secure due to the firewalls, and the barge will never sink. Now, these benefits are lost to you if you do not establish your trust package prior to the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. But these benefits are also lost to anyone of any relative amount of wealth who wants to protect themselves, unfortunately, from the United States government in 2023. Now, there are other benefits as well. The establishment of this trust is phase one of our turnkey program. But phase two of our program involves all of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. Our hope is to have a seminar 30 days after the revaluation of the dinar in Disney World, Florida. We're getting a little bit of jazz from them about some of the protocols if we have a problem with any of these vaccines and COVID and all of that stuff. So if that becomes a problem, we'll end up doing a DVD in office. We'll have our independent fee-based wealth managers there to discuss the investment and management of funds. And remember, after this revaluation, you're going to make sure to pay the taxes that will be due, and you're going to want to invest this money wisely, understanding that the more money that you have, the less risk that you need to take. We'll also have our tax people there that will discuss all of the tax strategies that you want to utilize with this newfound wealth. We also plan to have some of our offshore specialists there as well. Now that we've gotten into the offshore discussion, I do want to mention one thing, and it's this. One of the things we're looking at is the creation of the central bank digital currency. I think, and this is just my opinion, that one of the reasons, part of the calculus for the United States and all of these other countries to all of a sudden want to establish the central bank digital currency is not just a matter of control, but it's also a matter of the fact that we're moving globally from fiat-based to Basel 3, 4, and 5 commodity-backed currencies, and these currencies are going to increase substantially in value, and they're going to want control of those funds. But one of the things we can do with the establishment of our trust package is circumvent a lot of this. One of the ways we can do this is after this revaluation, we want to transfer to income-producing tangible assets, real estate, and things of that nature. One of the things that I personally like, and I've mentioned this, are REITs, R-E-I-T, small s, real estate investment trusts. They work like mutual funds, but you're investing in a portfolio of storage units, for example, and as opposed to a portfolio of stocks or bonds. Because you've done so, all of that principal is out of the banking system. They pay a nice dividend, 5, 6, 7, even 8% a year, and they're stable. Now, that dividend, of course, will be in the banking system. It would be exposed to the central bank digital currency if the thing ever passes. And as with the passing days, I'm beginning to wonder if they're going to be able to pull this off. But the point is you've minimized your exposure to the central bank. Then there's another strategy if we want to take it to another level. Now, pursuant to the Constitution, Article 1, I think it's Section 10, Section 8 or Section 10, these states can create their own currency. So what individuals can do is they can establish trust bank accounts in these states that operate outside of the central bank digital currency, and then you can utilize your ATM or credit cards from those banks to make purchases and move completely out of the central bank digital currency. Now, we're not to a point where we need to facilitate that. I'm only pointing out to you that through utilization of the trust, there are mechanisms available to circumvent having to surrender to the central bank digital currency and their control. I've gone into detail about all of the things that they can do when they can just hit a few keystrokes, because remember, they're taking it out of the hands of the bank and it's directly with the Treasury Department. And whenever they centralize something, they diminish the rights of the individual. And this is what we're trying to avoid with the creation of this Family Asset Protection Trust and some of these strategies. Now, before we get into a Q&A, I want to tell you a little bit about our trust package. First, this package was originally established for our more affluent clients. It initially had a cost of anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000, but it was over a decade ago that we made the decision to market this trust to Dinarians and those of you that had pre-valued currencies. When we did so, we knew that the price tag of $6,000 to $10,000 would be unaffordable for too many. But that price included actually funding the trust. What we're doing now is we're not going to fund the trust. We're merely going to assign the currencies to it and then fund the trust with your other assets after the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. So by simplifying the process, the protocol for doing this, we've been able to reduce the cost of the trust to $3,000. Now, this is a 10-trust package. There will be one master trust that will hold your assigned currencies pre-RV and your financial accounts like checking accounts, banking accounts, and investment accounts post-RV. One gifting subtrust, which you could utilize to gift currencies to family and friends and control the post-RV proceeds, but which subtrust can be converted to a standard subtrust at any time. And there are 8 additional standard subtrusts to hold physical assets like homes, cars, boats, etc. And, of course, we can always add standard subtrusts as needed. Now, this package, again, we've reduced the cost to $3,000. If you pay us up front, we'll discount the price further to $2,500, saving you an additional $500. We even have a deferred payment arrangement. You could pay an initial payment of $525, which sum would basically offset our out-of-pocket costs just to produce the trust package for you. The balance of the $3,000 would then be paid in $100 monthly installments. We will charge no interest. The only proviso is once the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar occurs globally, any unpaid balance would need to be paid within 30 days. Now, with this approach, anyone that has currencies and understands the need for getting their affairs in order and their trust in place pre-RV should be in a position to afford to do so. One other suggestion, we do accept credit cards. Pay us up front with a credit card. Not only will you get the $500 discount, but the minimum payment on your card would be less than $100 a month you'd pay under our deferred payment arrangement. But we will work with you in whatever method works best for you. Again, our objective is to help you get your affairs in order and your trust in force prior to the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies for all of the reasons stated. Now, I do want to go to a Q&A here today, but before I do, and again for the benefit of our newer callers, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Trusts Unlimited and why it might be a good idea for you to contact us to get our initial no-obligation package. Our Family Asset Protection Trust package was authored by our attorney, Robert Bly. He's been a practicing attorney for over 40 years, specializing in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. I myself hold degrees in political science, macroeconomics, and finance. I've worked in these areas for nearly 40 years, and I, along with my clients, were personally involved in the reinstatement of the Kuwaiti dinar in the early 90s. So between the two of us, Robert Bly and I have about 80 years' experience working precisely in this area, and I frankly know of no firm that can make that claim. And under our system of civil procedure, it's when you hold assets in direct title that you can lose control of them or lose control outright. If you've lived for any length of time, you've either experienced in your own life or through friends and family things like unexpected divorce, permanent incapacitation, the onset of dementia, premature death and prolonged and complicated probate processes. Then there are, of course, investment losses, business losses, and even bankruptcies. The number 2 loss of wealth now, courtesy of the information age, is identity theft. But the number 1 loss of personal wealth remains confiscation through civil litigation. Anything you own in direct title can be taken from you. So in point of fact, the only way that you can manage, protect, and control everything at all times and in all circumstances is through the establishment of a package of asset protection trusts, and particularly if you have an asset like these currencies that you anticipate a substantial increase in value. We at Trust Unlimited will do everything we can to help you accomplish your personal and financial objectives, both pre and post-RV, as we understand them. So thanks so much for listening to the call. I'm going to go ahead and open the Q&A, and then I'll give you our contact information. And while I'm waiting for any potential questions, I'd like to give you our contact information. Again, if the things we've discussed here are of interest, I strongly suggest you contact us to get our initial no-obligation package. It does contain everything you need if you wish to proceed with the establishment of your family trust package, but you're under absolutely no obligation to do so. You can review the package. It has a lot of information about us, about trusts, about the currencies. You can contact us if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you. There will be no consultation fee. But again, if you wish to proceed, everything you need is included in the package. Well, let's go to our Q&A here. Our first caller is area code 415. That's 415. Go ahead.
Joyce Rising to you, Jim. This is Al from the left coast. How are you?
Yes, sir. How you doing, Al?
Awesome, like a possum, man. Just appreciating all your information and insights. Truly making me more educated about protections and foundational stabilities. Great risings. I was curious. I'm hearing something about, and I didn't know nothing about it, so I figure I'd lean towards you to see if there might be some insight. I'm curious about the quantum financial system, or quantum whatever it is, quantum banking, quantum voting, and like that. Is that really something we should pay attention to? Is it something that's going to take over the monetary system? And how in assets would it be for us to have understanding or knowledge of that? Thank you very much.
Well, I'm going to give you a real short answer. The quantum financial system is here to stay, but I don't like systems that tend to centralize, and I don't trust a lot of the people that advocate for centralized citizens. Another good example would be the central bank digital currency. We're being told that it's safe, that it's much easier to work with. I absolutely hate it. I think it's a terrible idea. I think we're forfeiting possession of our currencies. That's why we were looking for ways to circumvent ourselves from the system. And again, there are certain advantages to the quantum system. There are certain advantages to the central bank digital currency. But unfortunately, government's going to do what it always does. It overplays its hand, and it introduces certain control mechanisms that are not to our advantage. Another example I can give you is the advent of artificial intelligence and what's going on. It's all being presented in one way when in fact it's doing just the opposite. So that's all I can really say about it. The only thing I'm concerned about is okay, this is where they're going, this is what they want to do, this is what they say it's going to do. All right, I'm going to take that at face value, but guess what else I'm going to do? I'm going to look for every possible way I can circumvent it because I just don't trust them. And that's basically all I can say about it.
Well, I mean, I agree. The AI system, that's total control. It's better than the CBDC or whatever you call it crap. But what I'm saying is like the Basel IV, that's, similar. To me, the constitutional laws, those are significant systems such as the quantum system, and then the what's that other one they got out? Quantum.
You talking about blockchain?
Well, blockchain, I'm scared of totally, but and I agree with you. Hard assets would be more stable than or tangible, such as species or legal tender.
But see, you threw in there Basel IV. See, now that's a little different. Basel IV and Basel V. There's actually 5 Basels, but we're in Basel IV.
Wow.
All they're doing is they're saying that the currencies are going to be backed with commodity backed, which means they're going to have real value. They're not going to be arbitrary. So, for example, the Chinese are not going to be able to artificially devalue their currency in order to corner the trade market and have trade deficits with all the other countries and enrich themselves. That's all going to stop. So there are certain things that are good. So you just have to do your homework and say, okay, this works, this works, this works. But now they're taking some of that away with this over here. So I got to figure out how I can do the things that work and to the extent possible circumvent the stuff that mitigates against that. So, it's going to be complicated. But one of the things I'm trying to say is a lot of this is moving forward in anticipation of what's going to be happening with these currencies, because there's going to be a general global shift from fiat-based to commodity-backed currencies. And frankly, it's going to affect the West in a negative fashion much more than the East, because the fiat currencies in Europe and the United States, that are the largest central banks, are the ones that are going to be most affected by this. It's good for us. We want sound money, but we don't want sound money if it's not in our control. We want both. And that's what we're trying to accomplish here through the establishment of the trust package, and then utilizing certain strategies within that trust package to circumvent from the stuff that we don't like.
Right. I agree. And I'm going to keep doing homework. I just figured maybe you could give me a path to dig on that quantum. I forget, it's a quantum something. But I keep digging on
the quantum,
that.
Well, just Google or a DuckDuckGo. As a matter of fact, here's the way to do it. Google quantum financial system and then DuckDuckGo quantum financial system, and look at the difference in how they present it. And what you find out is some of the bad stuff you won't get from Google. You'll get it from DuckDuckGo. All right?
Oh, really?
That's what wow. Well, I always double check and go to another source, and I always find a difference. Correct. And the difference always, Google is Google, but they're unfortunately they lie by omission. They leave stuff out.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I'll get back to searching, and thank you for the information, because you gave me some other new stuff to start digging up. Thank you very much.
Okay, Al. Take care. Bye-bye now.
Ciao.
Our next caller is area code 619-619.
Hey, good morning, Jim. How are you?
Eddie, how you doing?
Excellent, my friend. Thank you. Hey, I'm not sure if you know about this. I had heard something that Parliament had set an end date for their voting on the budget. And I don't know if May 10th was the potential date that they had set up. Do you know anything about that?
Yes, I did, but I thought it was later. I think I heard something like May 28th. I did hear a date.
You know what,
that's why.
Yeah. Okay. Well, 10 days was like, a few days ago, so it was, I think, right at the end of this last month or something like that. So I could be wrong, but
if that is the date, it falls within the window for the reinstitution that I'm looking at, which was April 21st to May 15th, because either the dinar is going to reinstitute just prior to, simultaneous to, or shortly after the passage of the budget. But I think I heard a date of May 28th. I didn't pay too much attention to it because, again, I don't think the two are directly linked, even though in a perfect world they reinstitute and then pass the budget with that reinstituted rate, but they could do it the reverse. So I just don't think they're directly linked.
Okay. All right. And then there's a little bit of rumor, Jim, and I don't know if you are open to talking about this. There's something being said about possibly when we exchange that we would be receiving a computer and a phone because of the fact that this is going to be how they're going to monitor and digitalize and watch our finances. Anything about that?
I sure as hell hope that's crap, but that, to me, that's a violation of your Fourth Amendment right. If I'm conducting a legal exchange, I don't have to explain myself to anybody. So if they're saying we're not going to do the exchange unless you do the following, but of course, who wants to go to court and fight that for 3 years? They're just going to swallow hard.
Exactly.
That doesn't make sense to me. Really, I'm not saying that. I mean, it very well may be out there as a rumor. That doesn't make sense to me at all, though.
Excellent.
It really does.
Jim, thank you for your time. I appreciate you,
sure.
As you know.
Okay, take care, Eddie. Bye-bye now. Our next caller is area code, let's see, 210. That's 210. Go ahead.
Hey, Jim. It's Ted in New Braunfels.
Yes, sir.
How are you doing?
Okay, how are you?
Good. On the trust, we just need to get an EIN number for the main trust, right? And all the sub-trusts lie on the main trust?
No, the only trust that you need an EIN number for are the master trust and, if you have one, the gift sub-trust. If you've got any questions about the protocol, because they do kind of play games with you, you can send us an email and just say, hey, would you please send me the EIN number protocol, and I'll send that right off to you.
Okay. I have some more questions. Would you be able to give me a call later on?
Hold on a second. Let me write down your number. Got it on the screen here. And your first name again? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, Ted.
Ted?
Yeah, T-E-D, yes, Ted.
Well, that's my middle name, Theodore. So,
okay.
I should have picked up on that. Okay, I will. I'll give you a call shortly after we get off of this call. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Take care, Ted. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, our next caller is area code 810. That's 810. Go ahead.
Hi, Jim. This is Diane.
Diane, how are you?
I'm doing good. I have a question. Something you had said probably, I think, a couple of weeks or so ago in regards to a letter pertaining to, like when we go to do our exchange as far as our
Yes.
trust.
You're referring to the bank letter.
Yes.
Our trust has certain characteristics of a business trust because it has sub-trusts. Some banks misunderstand that and think it's a business trust, and some banks will not deal with a business trust. So the letter explains that this is an asset protection trust package with sub-trust. It's not a business trust. Now, we are going to put that letter in an email to all of our clients when the dinar reinstitutes in country as part of the protocol for the exchange. But I've been sending that letter to anyone requesting it. So if you will just send me an email saying, hey, Jim, send me the bank letter, I'll get it right out to you.
Okay. And now what the gentleman just asked about as far as the EIN, do we need that too, letter?
Ask for the bank letter and the EIN protocol, and I'll send them both to you.
Okay. I have one other question. Now, you said something, this been a while ago, you said that, after this is all done and everything, that you were going to kind of move out of the scene, off the scene, should I say, and you were saying something about you were going to be like John the Baptist and just kind of move off the scene. So who do we get in contact with if we...
Well, hopefully I don't end up like he did, but...
no. But I'm just saying, who do we get in contact with, or is there somebody that we need to be kind of like maybe getting familiar with now?
Well, first of all, I'm not equating myself to John the Baptist. He was a saint. I'm not. Second, yes, I will be gone because I'm kind of the pre-RV guy, but the firm will be there, the attorneys will be there, and all of the individuals that will be just, offshore people, tax people, etc. if you want to work with them, we can refer you to them, or you can work with your own people. But certainly the firm will be there because the trusts will need to be serviced. People will be funding the sub-trust. They'll be making changes, et cetera, et cetera. So I personally won't be there, but the firm will be there to assist everyone post-RV. I'm going to be on a beach somewhere sucking on a mint julep, thanking Jesus. So that's where I'll be.
Okay, but what I'm saying is that, who will we be able to, is there somebody that we need to be able to, get acquainted with now? Because I think I've called once before, and it was kind of...
You will get acquainted with him when the Dinar reinstitutes, because the attorneys and paralegals and other people will be on our calls on Wednesday. We won't be marketing about all the other issues.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. Okay, thank you. I'll be sending in my email in regards to this. Thank you, Jim.
Sure. Okay, take care.
Okay.
Bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay, our next questioner is area code 312. That's 312. Go ahead.
Hey, Jim. Les in Chicago. Good morning.
Sir.
Or after. So now I got two questions, because the last caller asked if you were going to be in Florida, and you said no, right?
I said we don't know. They're kind of giving us jazz about this protocol for when you do seminars, that if they want, we have to wear masks, be a certain number of feet apart and all that crap. But we can't do that with a bunch of people at a seminar, having everyone put on a mask and be 6 feet apart. I mean, you can't, it's too uncomfortable. And plus, just me personally, I don't buy the whole thing anyway, so I'm just not going to comply. That's just me, all right? So we'll do it another way if I'm involved. I'm just not going to do it.
Okay, I don't want to do it either. I don't think we need to have masks on either.
No. Well, Disney's taken a hard left lately, and I took my kids there. They love the place, love going down there. But when they start getting really restrictive like that, for no apparent reason, if we had a legitimate pandemic, people wouldn't be getting together anyway. I certainly
got that right.
I'm not going to shake 1,000 hands. I'm not going to do that. So if this is just another one of their little obedience tests, I'm not doing it. And they can lose the business. It's
I agree.
You
can find another venue.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Now, the only question I had was regarding last week. Now, you got off the call early last week, and you said that call you were getting on had to do with rates. Did you get rates for dinar or any of the other currencies we're holding?
You missed the beginning of my call, didn't you?
No, I heard it, but...
Oh, well, what? Yeah. Okay, all right, fine. Yeah, rates were being discussed, and I touched on rates, and what they were talking about was the convergence between the official rate and the market or street rate. But what they did discuss was the fact that they were basically compelling the citizen to establish a bank account in order to exchange the 3-0 provisional currency for the new national currency. And then they went into the fact that they were transitioning to the electronic platform and that everything was going to be done in dinar. So that's basically what the call was about. It wasn't more information than was available to anyone today, but it was more information than was available a week ago.
Okay.
But that was basically it. It's their inclusion policy, and they were allowing everyone to set up accounts, even minors. And it's for a couple reasons. It's for the benefit of the citizen. They're putting them on the platform. Also, they'll get their distribution from the hydrocarbon law directly to their accounts. They'll have their ATM cards, so they just basically went into remember, this is a country that's transitioning. Remember when ATMs came out in this country and everyone thought, I don't have to write a check. That's kind of, well, imagine a country that don't even write checks. These people, they only use hard currency, and they don't put it in banks. They go from that to this. So this is a huge transition for them. But the tell is, or the catch is that in order to exchange the pre-provisional, you can't go to an exchange center anymore. You're going to have to go to a bank and establish a bank account. So they're basically putting everyone on the grid.
Okay. All right. I'll accept that and just say,
well, we got to.
Yeah. have you have you gotten any rates on any of the currencies from any of your contacts? Telling
well,
you
there's all kinds of extrapolated best scenario rates. I think, if I recall, it was 485 on the dinar, 226 on the dong. What was the? I'm trying to remember. I kind of don't pay attention. I really don't pay attention. When someone says, "Hey, I got a date and a rate," and I'd say, "Yeah, I got a submarine with screen doors." Okay, I mean, I don't pay too much attention to it.
Submarine with screen doors.
Yeah.
Okay,
it's the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah. So you don't remember what you got for the rupiah?
I'm trying. They didn't give me anything on the Zim. The rupiah, they gave me what I thought was a crazy number for the rupiah, like something like $1.27, which I don't buy. Here's what I will take, me personally.
Okay.
I'll take three on the dinar. I'll take a buck on the dong. I'll take 25 cents on the rupiah, and I'll take a penny for my Zim. So we'll see.
You're easy.
That's right. Hey, I'm done. I got a lot of currency. I'm not going to obsess over money anymore. Okay.
Okay.
Whatever I get, I get. I paid nothing for the currencies. I'm getting huge numbers for it. You can't let money control you emotionally. You just can't do it.
That's correct.
You can't do it.
That's correct.
If I find a $20 bill in the curb, I'm not going to be upset because there weren't two 20s. I'm going to say, wow, I found a 20. That's the way I'm looking at it.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for sharing, and say hi to the professor, and thanks for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Take care
Bye.
now. All right. Bye-bye.
Likewise.
Well, that was our last caller for today. Again, thanks for listening to the call. If you're new to the call, I respectfully ask that you subscribe to us, get all of our future calls, and if you'd be kind enough to share it with individuals, we'd really appreciate it. The things we've discussed today are of interest. I strongly suggest you contact us to get our initial no-obligation package. You can contact us either by phone or email. Our email address is trusts@gmail.com, and our phone service is 307-274-4122. Contact us by email or phone. Request our initial no-obligation package. We'll get it out to you. Again, it does contain everything you need if you wish to proceed, but you're under no obligation to do so. You can review the package. Contact us if you have any questions. There will be no consultation fee. Our next call will, of course, be next Wednesday. Certainly, if something of dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we'll try to get out an emergency email and schedule an emergency conference call. But failing that, we'll be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks so much for listening, everyone, and have a great week. Bye-bye.